Hi everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made for this month's Stretch the Sketch. In Stretch the Sketch, we take a sketch that's intended for a 12 by 12 inch layout and we either stretch it to a larger format, sometimes a 2-page spread, or we shrink it to a smaller one. And in this layout, as with many of my recent videos, I am shrinking the sketch to a smaller, approximately 6 by 8 inch layout. This month, we're using this beautiful sketch from Laura Whitaker, and I really like the sketch, and I wanted to use it just the way that it was, other than having to shrink it a little bit. But I didn't have two vertical photos. I only had horizontal photos, so I turned the sketch on its side. At the bottom of the layout, there's a diagonal area, and I decided to put that diagonal piece of paper on the right-hand side because the photo that I have that's at the top, that has a lot of empty space on the right hand side. So I thought that since the right hand side of my photos will get covered up a little bit, it was best to place the angle on the right hand side. So these are two photos that I have from quite a long time ago. They were from 1997 and then I would say about 1999. I'm still a teacher, not at the same school, and I would never post current pictures of my students, but I think that these students are probably in their mid-30s. Some might be even a little bit older. So I think it's okay to post these pictures at this time. It's crazy how long ago I had these students, but looking at the pictures, I could tell you all of their names. This was a very memorable time in my teaching career. I had a very small classroom. It was a private school, and I just really enjoyed working with students in small groups, and I really got to know each one of them, and it was just a unique experience. I've enjoyed every year of teaching, but I do remember these first years very fondly. I knew that I was making a school-themed layout, so I got out my envelope of school-themed papers. And since my children have been out of elementary school for so many years, I haven't replenished those papers. So I used kind of a hodgepodge of different pattern papers that I had in there. I know that the paper in the background is from a Die Cuts with a View pad. I don't know the name of the manufacturer for that strip that I have on the right-hand side of the layout because I only had a scrap of that. And then I matted both of my photos on some pattern paper. The blue paper that I used for the photo at the top, that's Die Cuts with a View. And then the mat for the photo on the bottom of the page, that's a Bow Bunny paper. This layout is a little busier than most layouts that I've made, but for elementary school, I kind of like to have bright colors. And then I thought that since the paper that's on the right is much more subtle than the paper that I have in the whole background, I should bring a little bit of that busier paper over to the duller paper, just so that the layout wouldn't be divided into subtle and bold. So I used a border punch and I punched out a notebook edge on a piece of off-white paper. And then I took a strip of that very bold paper, I mounted on some black cardstock, and then I attached that down to the strip of notebook paper. This layout is going into an album that I'm making for my daughters. I'm making each of them a separate album. This all started quite a few years ago when I took a class with Janet Fritz, who also organizes Stretch the Sketch, and it was called Impactful Storytelling, and it was something new for me because I was so used to telling my children's story in my scrapbooking layouts, and this is a story of me. And then I was just going to make one of those albums. My older daughter started looking at the album in its half-finished state, and she said, "Oh, could I have this album?" So I said, "Oh, of course you can have this." But then I thought that's not really fair that I have an album for Danielle and not one for Julia. So now I'm going back and I'm making a second layout for each of the 12 prompts that we had for Julia. And I think that I might have all the layouts done before I've completed editing all of the journaling that's going to go along with this. If you followed my channel for a while, you may notice that I rarely will journal on a scrapbook page. And the reason for that is most of my scrapbooking has journaling that I put on totally separate pages. And that's what I'm doing for this one. I do that for all of my travel albums, and even some other days that I think are special days, I'll keep separate journaling for those albums. And then, like I said, I put them on a different paper. Sometimes they're different size papers, sometimes they're the same size paper, but I'll include the journaling in the album separately. And then another way that I like to include journaling is on tags that slip behind the photo or an element on the paper, because I'm not really good at including the journaling when I'm making the layout. I feel like I'm not really thinking about the journaling when I'm thinking about creating the design of the layout. So I like to do the journaling later, and tags that I can fill out later on when I'm all done with the layout, those really work for me. I used the paper that I have on the diagonal on the right to create a little tag that I tucked behind the photo on the left, but that's just a false tag. I can't pull that one out. And then I also put a tab that I had laying on my desk for a really long time at the top of the photos, and I thought that it was perfect because the color matched, and I was really happy to finally get that onto a layout. And then for an embellishment, I'm cutting out one of these Bo Bunny cards that I had in my stash. There was a picture of some books on it, and the colors just happen to go really well with the colors that are already on the layout. So I fussy cut those books out. And then to make it go along with the other embellishments on the page, I decided to attach it down to a piece of black cardstock and then make a border of the black all around the edge. Earlier, I added my title, which is School Days. I found a sticker that said School Days, and so I mounted that on some of the same teal cardstock that I mounted the top picture on, and then I attached that down to the layout. Then I was thinking that since I gave all the other embellishments on the page a border of black cardstock, I might as well do the same thing to the tag. So I lifted that up and gave it a black cardstock border. And then I decided to do the same thing to the title. It already has that teal border, and I thought I would add a black border to the title as well. But for the title, I'm using a piece of pattern paper that I really love. It coordinates with the background paper. And then I know that I also want to add some photo corners, so I thought that I would use this paper to back the title and to make some photo corners. And on the title and some other spots on the layout, I used some distress ink in black soot to ink the edges of the paper. That was only when you were able to see the white of the paper, and I wanted it to look black rather than having that white core showing through. Now I'm adding some photo corners to my pages. I have my photo corner punch that I love to use. I'm just adding 2 photo corners to the page, one on each of the photos, because the photo corners are regular size and the photos are very tiny, so I thought that that would be enough. And then I wanted to add some embellishments to the border of the page. The page is already very busy, but I did want to go along with the sketch and add some embellishments on that diagonal. So I'm using this puffy sticker pack from Blvd. There were 4 yellow stars on it, so I decided to use all 4 of the yellow stars. There were also 2 yellow dots, and I needed, I thought, 1 more element to go in each of those clusters, so I think that those finished those areas off. I got out some of my older tools, a hammer and a hole punching tool, and I punched a hole for a brad for the tag. I wanted to add something to the tab at the top of the page, so I found this little piece from some basic gray packaging. It says notes, so I cut it smaller and I inked the edges and then I stuck it on the tab. I also wanted to add a little something to the stars, so I used some small rhinestones that I had in my stash. These are self-adhesive, and then I put slightly larger ones on the larger stars, and then some smaller ones on the smaller stars and the dot. And then after I make this layout, I go back and glue them down with some glossy accents because I realized that they really weren't sticking to those puffy stickers. The rhinestone jewels are the very last element that I add to this layout. And I wanted to say thank you so much for watching this video and for sticking with me to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to check out the Stretch the Sketch playlist, which is in the description box, so you could check out all the other videos from Stretch the Sketch this month. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.